For this lesson, you need to open Sales Report 1 from your Sample Files folder. This session introduces visualizations. Visualizations are a halfway house between raw data and charts. You're going to learn all about charts in Session 5. With a few clicks of the mouse, visualizations allow you to express numbers in a visual manner. I'd like you to be able to see all of the worksheet for this lesson, so I'll hide the ribbon. To do this, I click Ribbon Display Options at the top right of the screen, and then Auto Hide Ribbon. And you can now see all of the cells in the worksheet. Now I'm going to apply a data bar visualization to the sales by country figures. To do that, I'll select the numbers, that's cells B5 to B25. Then I'll click at the top of the screen to bring back the ribbon, Home tab on the ribbon, and in the Styles group, Conditional Formatting. And I'll choose Data Bars. Notice there's two types of data bar, a gradient fill data bar and a solid fill data bar. If I hover the mouse over one of the gradient fills, you can see on the worksheet that the data bars begin with a solid colour and gradually fade out as they move towards the right. Now let's hover over one of the solid fills, and you can see that in this case the data bar has solid colours. I think I'll go for a red gradient fill, so I click, and you can see that the visualization has now been applied to the range B5 to B25. There's several different types of visualization. We're going to look at another one now called a color scale visualization. I'm going to apply a color scale visualization to cells E5 to E12. So I select cells E5 to E12, then bring back the ribbon, Home tab on the ribbon, in the Styles group Conditional Formatting, and this time it's going to be a color scales visualization. Color scales change the colors in each cell depending upon their value. For example, this first color scale visualization moves between green, yellow and red depending on the value in the cell. So I can see at a glance that my best selling category is beverages and my worst selling categories are grains, cereals, produce and seafood. There's many different color scale visualizations. I think in this case I'll go for a green-yellow color scale visualization. This shows the lower values as yellow and gradually moves to green as the value increases. I can see that beverages is my best category, followed by dairy produce, then meat, poultry, and then confections. I'll click now to apply the visualization. Now let's look at a third type of visualization called an icon set visualization. I'm going to apply this to the sales by month values. So I'll select cells E20 to E25. Then click at the top of the screen to bring back the ribbon, Home tab on the ribbon, and in the Styles group, Conditional Formatting. Now I'll hover over the Icon Sets item, and you can see all of the different icon sets available to you. If I hover over one of these directional icon sets, you can see that the icons are green, yellow and red arrows. Here's a traffic lights icon set, where you can see 3 traffic lights, green, yellow and red. Here's a variant on the traffic lights theme. Here are some flags, and here's some stars. I think I'll choose the 3 flags visualization, and when I click, you can see that there's a little problem. The column is no longer wide enough to incorporate both the icon set visualization and the values. So let's fix that up. I'll click at the top of the screen to bring back the ribbon, and on the Home tab in the Cells group, Format and Auto Fit Column Width. And everything's now back to normal. Now if you look at the sales by month visualization, you might think that this could discourage the salesman, because only 1 month is flagged as green, with 4 months flagged as red. We'll adjust the criteria for flag allocation so that 3 months are shown as green. This is possible using the Rules Manager that you learnt to use in Lesson 416. So I'll select the values in Sales by Month. Then I'll click at the top of the screen and Home tab on the ribbon, Styles, Conditional Formatting, and the last option is Manage Rules. When I click this, the Rules Manager is displayed. And there's the three flags icon set. So I'll click on the three flags icon set to select it, and then click the Edit Rule button. And now you can see the criteria that the Rules Manager is using to allocate the different coloured flags. It's using percentages, and values in the top 67% are getting a green flag. Values in the bottom 33% are getting a red flag, and everything in between is getting a yellow flag. Well, I'd like to have 3 green flags, so I think it would be easier to work with values rather than percentages. So I'll change the type in both cases to number. I want 3 of my flags to be green, and I can see that there are 3 values that are greater than 45,000. So I'll use that number for my first value, 45,000. I'd like to only have 1 red flag for the lowest sales value, and I can see that only 1 sales value was below 38,000. So for the second criteria, I'll type 38,000. Then I'll click OK, and let's apply this to see whether it's worked. So I'll click Apply, and you can now see that I've got the result I wanted. 3 green flags, 2 yellow flags, and 1 red flag. So I'll click OK to save the visualization. A question I'm often asked is it possible to have a data bar visualization without showing the numbers behind it? Well, yes, you can do this, again, using the Rules Manager. I'll demonstrate this in column B, since this is where we have a data bar visualization. I'll select all of the cells that contain the data bar visualization. Then I'll click at the top of the screen to bring back the ribbon. Home tab on the ribbon, Styles and Conditional Formatting. That last option is Manage Rules. That will bring up the Rules Manager. So I'll click that. And then I'll select the data bar visualization and click the Edit Rule button. And I want you to notice the checkbox that says Show Bar Only. This will remove the values on display and only show the data bars. So I'll click Show Bar Only, then OK, then Apply just to make sure it worked, and yes, it did work, and then OK. And you can see that now I'm only seeing the data bar visualization in cells B5 to B25 and not the values in the cells. I think I'll put things back to normal though in column B, so I'll click at the top of the screen to bring back the ribbon and just click the Undo button once. Another question I'm asked a lot is, can I show a data bar visualization alongside the cells with the values in them rather than inside the cell with the value? Well, yes, you can, using a simple technique that I'll demonstrate now. Supposing for the sales by month figures in cells E20 to E25, I'd like to put a data bar visualization alongside in the cells in column F. Well, to do that, I'll begin by echoing the values in column E in column F. So I'll click in cell F20, type the equals key on the keyboard, and click once onto the value in E20 to give me the formula equals E20. And when I press the Enter key, the value that's in cell E20 is repeated in cell F20. And of course, if the value in E20 changes, then the value in F20 will change as well. Now I'll autofill this formula down to the end of the range, and I'm now echoing all of the values in cells E20 to E25 into the cells F20 to F25. Now I'll apply a data bars visualization to cells F20 to F25. Well, the cells are already selected, so I'll click at the top of the screen to bring back the ribbon. Home tab on the ribbon, Styles and Conditional Formatting. I'm going to apply this data bar visualization, I think this time I'll choose a solid blue colour. And now I want to use the Rules Manager to remove the values behind the data bars. So once again, bring back the ribbon, Home tab, Styles, Conditional Formatting, bring up the Rules Manager, select the visualization and edit the rule, and I'll check that Show Bar Only checkbox that we used just a moment ago. And when I click OK and OK, you can see that I have the data bar visualization now alongside the cells in column E. And I can make column F a lot wider too if I want to, opening up many interesting display possibilities. I'll now remove column F by selecting it with the mouse and then right-click and delete. Well, that's the end of this lesson, so I think I need to bring back that ribbon. So I'll click the Ribbon Display Options button at the top right of the screen and return to Show Tabs and Commands, the normal way of working with Excel. And all that remains now is to save your work, and I'll save with the new name Sales Report 2. And as usual, I'll save to the folder above my sample files folder. I click the Save button, and you've now completed Lesson 417. Bring data alive with visualizations.